Seibs, we're 5 weeks in. Who's the best player in the comp?
Nathan Cleary.
Yep, still.
Yeah, by a mile. He might not be playing the best he can play, but he's still the best player in the comp. He put on a clinic the other night.
Yeah, I would agree. We'll get into that game a little bit later. The Raiders, they are.
Are you still thinking they're a team there somewhere?
No, particularly like they would have got pumped Whiten or no Whiten.
Yeah.
But they're so cooked. I don't blame if Jack Whiten wants to leave.
No, and Penrith are really good still. But I think anyone would have beaten by 50 the other night.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I agree with Nathan. Still the best player, but I would argue the player in the best form at the moment is Munster.
Yeah.
He is so vital to what Melbourne do. They're 3-0 with him there, and they're 0-2 without him. And, you know, as a Storm fan last year, there was the contract negotiation stuff going on. I knew they had Jonah Pezzett, who was a really good player. Yeah. And there was a point there where I was thinking, you know what, bugger this. See you later.
Yeah.
Let's use this
$1
$1 million.
He's their best player.
Let's use this $1 million somewhere else in the team. Because we got Pezzett there. He's on nothing. But he's so important to that team.
Yeah, he is. He's their best player. And he's in the argument for best player in the comp. There's probably 2 or 3. I seriously think, though, they're in a photo finish for second spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's get into these games. Roosters beating Parramatta. The stretch of tough games is over now for Parramatta.
Yeah, that was... Roosters were really, really good. At no point did I think Para were a chance of getting themselves back in that game or winning that game. And I personally think that they did a really good job not to lose by 50 themselves because Roosters were red hot. Para had 12 on the field for 20 minutes, and they did a pretty fair job, really, considering all those things.
The rough stretch is over now. Now they can bounce back against West Tigers, who they'll get a win against later on this week.
Swali was good.
He was good. Do you put Swali or Manu at fullback for the Roosters?
I put Manu at 5'8" and Sam Walker on the bench. So there's your fullback.
Yes.
But they won't this week. It'll be Manu. No, it'll be Manu in the centres. Swali will play fullback.
You reckon?
Yeah, this
Wow.
week. Just because of last week, he finished off well.
I think Eels can go on a bit of a run now.
Yeah.
And you know what? They have to.
Yeah, they do. We spoke about the 10-game mark last week or the week before, and they have to win 3 or 4 of their next 5.
Yes.
And again, they definitely can. I mean, they got the Tigers, then they go...
Bulldogs?
Yeah, they got the Dogs at home. They've got the Broncos. They've got the Knights. And then Magic Round, they have the Titans. So 4 of those 5 games I'll go in as favourite, and the last 3 or 4 years, they've just got the wood over the Broncos. So I'd be shocked if they didn't win 3 or 4 from 5. They might, lose one that they weren't expected to, but again, it wouldn't surprise if they went 5 from 5.
I agree. And the Roosters, they started off slow at the start of the year, but you can tell they're going to be there when the wits are cracking at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we both discussed them early on and thought that they're going to be there. They're too good.
How much pressure should be on Ricky Stewart at the moment?
A lot more than what there is. Have you ever heard him get criticised in the media or on Fox, on the paper?
We both know why.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not one for, as I've said previously, I'm not one for coaches getting ridiculed and bagged out in the media. But they've got a team that is I'm not saying top 4, but they're a definite top 8 side, potentially top 6, and they should be there and thereabouts every single year. And for 10 years, it's every now and again they get there. Look, on paper, you look at their forward pack.
It's
a good
one
pack.
of the best.
Yeah, it is a very, very good pack.
Like, you've got internationals all around it, and you could argue the best front row in the world.
Yeah, but, and I get that they miss Savage. Seb Chris is barely a...
He's not a fullback. Man.
No, he's not.
And the fact that they keep persisting with that is quite frightening,
Stubborn.
actually. I actually think Whiten to fullback was probably the move.
Yeah, but that would have been better. I mean, Seb Chris is a good centre. He's not a good fullback.
Penrith, though, to me, are still the best team.
Yeah.
Storm Rabbitohs, this to me, we can talk about the Rabbitohs going ordinary, but I was so impressed with the Storm defensively against the Rabbitohs on Friday night.
Rabbits had all of the possession, all the field position, but it flows on from the week before. They could hardly score points against Manly, and then Manly conceded 30 against the Knights. Once again, Souths had all of the ball, all the field position, and they only put 2 tries on the board.
Latrell, to me, doesn't get involved enough.
Does he look interested?
No.
No.
And to me, that comes back to coaching. Like, the coach has to find a way to get him involved here, because it's one thing for Latrell to come in the last 5-10 minutes and go, hey, I'm here we go, let's take a few runs, let's change the game.
Let's try and get creative.
Yes, but for 70 minutes, he's just a nothing at the moment.
Yeah, look, he's not playing bad, but he's just not being involved to have an impact.
Yeah, there wasn't one moment in the first 60 minutes against the Storm where I thought, oh, I'm really worried about Latrell here.
And the thing is, a bad referee decision the week before, and they could have been looking at one from 5.
Yeah,
and then they would have been in trouble because they've got a bit of a tough run coming up.
They do, and they take on later on this week. They take on the Bulldogs. I don't rule the Bulldogs out in that game. I think they're half a chance against the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, so do I, especially on Easter. Easter, was it Good Friday, that one?
Friday.
Yeah, Good Friday. It's always a close game. I mean, every now and again, when the Rabbits were flying and the Dogs were really struggling, there was a couple of blowouts, but as a general rule, it's an exciting game.
We're starting to see a couple of people come back from Melbourne now. I was a bit critical of him earlier on in the year, but Will Warbrick, he is improving rapidly.
I think we both might have been. Some of his defensive efforts.
Yes.
And again, he still looks like he's not 100% sure defensively, but he's a handful with the footy.
Yeah.
It makes sense as to why he would have been such a good sevens player. And he's strong.
And one thing I noticed on the weekend, every time they did a back line, the Rabbitohs, Will Warbrick was always 100% committed on coming in and jamming that 2 in. So...
You know who didn't watch that? The Greg Marzhew.
Greg Marzhew.
And Tolu
Cola?
No, not Cola. I always get his name wrong. The winger for Manly.
Tui Pilato.
Tui Pilato. Both of them showed examples of what not to do.
If you're going to do that, you've got to be committed. You can't be half and half. So the fact that he was so committed, that stopped a lot of tries for the Rabbitohs.
And that also means that your defenders around you don't have a choice either. If you're so committed, well, then everyone's got to go. You've made a decision, whether it's right or wrong, you've got to go, you've got to back yourself, and everyone around you's got to go.
Yep, and he shut down a lot. And he's just he's a bit of a freak. The Storm find these physical freaks to put on the wing.
Strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're starting to bring a few players back. I really like Bronson Garlick off the bench. Like he's one of those 27-year-old debuts.
Yeah.
But he just brings some punch off the bench. And they get people like Tepai Moroa back, and Tarek Sims, he's technically back but didn't play on the weekend. Some good signs for Melbourne over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and they do have a couple of good players playing. Reggie's playing for the Sunny Coast at the moment as well, so they'll be there about. They're going to be top 4.
Great to see Jonah Pezzett play well over the past couple of weeks. If you were a club that needed a half, would you be pursuing him relentlessly?
Definitely, and there's no way on earth they'll let him go.
No. Certainly not while he's under contract anyway.
That's it.
Yeah,
I just don't see... I don't see why they would even contemplate it. Jerome Hughes... Realistically, he's 30 now?
Oh, he'd be close.
Yeah, thereabouts. So, Pezzett's a kid. Pezzett's very, very a long way off being the final product. So he needs another 2 or 3 years, and I think it's going to be a really smooth transition for him into that Storm halfback role.
There'd be some really angry coaches from the weekend as to how the results went, and we'll start off with your brother being one of them. I could have stopped a train on the weekend with some of the calls I made at halftime in some of these games.
Halftime, 5 minutes in, I think that first text you sent me was.
Yes. I text you about 10 minutes into that game and go, man, this could be a long day for old Newcastle.
Yeah, the sin bin definitely changed momentum, didn't it?
First of all, the effort by Lachlan Miller on that first try from Olakuatu.
What was he thinking?
Unbelievable. I've never seen it before.
Whether it's true or not, he just has to go with he thought the dead ball line was the try line.
Yes.
He has to go with it and stick with it. Otherwise, it's terribly embarrassing.
He should never be picked again.
Yeah.
Because if you make a line break, you're a try. no sugarcoating it though. Manly be filthy. They lost this game.
Yeah, they would be.
They didn't even lose. It was a draw.
Well, no, they got a point out of it.
Yeah.
They should have taken 2. That's really 3 points that they've left the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You could argue that the week before Manly were robbed, and there is an argument that Newcastle may or may not have been robbed. There was a try there which was disallowed, the Bradman Best one.
I do think it was a no try.
I do as well, but if we're going to change the interpretation of the grounding of the footy and be a little bit flexible with getting the footy down over the try line, then tell me really where was there a knock on?
Yeah, I agree. It was very picky, and that just goes on to another topic that the refs go this year. They've been ornery, and I will never criticise a referee for a decision in the game.
No, definitely.
But when the bunker looks at it and then they get it wrong, it's like, what are you thinking? Now, forward passes are an exception because touch judges, they're just fans with flags. But when the bunker's looking at it and then they get it wrong, you're like, how is this even possible?
I know that they'll continually tell us that there's multiple TVs with all the different camera angles that they're looking at. Why not show us that?
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what, the 2 teams that were under the pump coming into the start of the season, Knights and the Dragons, they're both 2-2 at the moment. They must be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, look, neither of them are rubbish teams.
No.
Neither of them are top 8 teams, but they're far from the worst 2 or 3 teams in the comp. I think we'll get to them in a minute, but the Dolphins, things are, reality setting in there a little bit, and the Tigers are just woeful.
Well, that is the next game. We'll move on to St. George and the Dolphins. St. George absolutely blew them out of the water. Really good win for St. George, and it was one of those games that you felt like, because of the couple of injuries to the Dolphins, if St. George liked their coach at all, they were going to get up for this game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think they've shown a couple of times this year already that they're buying into what he's doing, and they're all on board. It's just, I think they are that team that when they're on, they're on. When they're not, they're not. There's not a great deal of resilience there. I don't think it's anything to do with who the coach is.
It was interesting.
It's the type of player they got.
Of course. And it was interesting last week. I had Jarrell Yagi on the podcast, and I asked him about Anthony Griffin because he was coached by Hook at the Broncos. And he said, mate, there will not be a single Broncos player who was with me around that time that will have anything bad to say about Anthony Griffin.
He did a good job. He laid the platform for the grand final that they lost. All of those blokes he'd brought through. And again, opinions on coaches and staff are going to be dependent on whether or not they had to tell you something you didn't want to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
There's some that are probably can be borderline ordinary people. There's some that are really good blokes. Again, your perception is going to be based on, did they have to give you some news in and around, are you being dropped, what do you need to improve, or you're going so good, the world's your oyster.
Could the Dragons sneak into the 8?
No.
No?
No, too many good teams. Too many teams that are better than them. It's been a great start to the year, though. I mean, some of these games have been unbelievable. I know we've had so many Golden Point, but the amount of games that are within a try, it's awesome. I think, the Dolphins coming in has taken away a few good players from each of the good clubs. Then teams like the Dogs buying a couple of blokes from Penrith has weakened Penrith a little bit. Para's lost a couple of their better players from the last 2 or 3 years. So all of a sudden, the Storm, obviously big time, have lost their whole back row. So you can see that the really good teams have come back to the pack a little bit. The weaker teams have strengthened, and it's obvious as to the results.
One game that wasn't close over the weekend was Broncos-West Tigers. I want to talk about the comments made by Tim Sheen after the game, saying that they hope that they win the bye round. Now, I know that is a throwaway line and a joke. I actually found it disgraceful. Because if you're a fan and that's all you've got to look forward to the bye round, tough times at West Tigers.
I don't know. I mean, take it with a grain of salt. It was clearly, tongue-in-cheek, and he was trying to find something to lighten the mood. And maybe he's been so intense the last month and critical of everything, he's decided, okay, I've got to change my tact here and try and lighten the mood and have a laugh. But it's certainly not working. And we said it before round one. how does someone who hasn't been in the NRL for 10 years and two guys that have never coached even under 16 or 18 level, how's that going to work?
And he could be a genius as well, because we're now sitting here talking about him rather than
Of course.
rather than the actual
Of course,
Tigers
and they
players.
were none from 5 last year, and they come into Easter and they beat Para. If that happens, you cancel the podcast next week. I'm done.
This might be the last episode of the Weekly Wrap with Damien Seibold. Are there any positional changes you can make at West Tigers to get results now?
I don't think they got the cattle.
I can think of one. Dane Laurie to me has to play fullback,
Yep.
and I would actually move Adam Dewey to lock.
Their forwards aren't their problem.
I know, but I don't think Dewey's a fullback at all. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Adam Dewey. I don't think he's a fullback at all. I think the best fullback in the club is Dane Laurie.
But I don't think he's a very good fullback, Dane Laurie.
Oh, no.
But I know what you're saying. He's the best fullback that they've got.
Yes.
You know, but then if you're going to move him away from fullback, I think they just stick with him at 5'8". I really do. I think they stick with him and Brooks in the halves.
Do you not think, though, that if you moved him to lock, I think he could handle it defensively?
Yeah.
And it provides more attack. So you get Wakeham.
But you're still stuck
Brooks
with
out.
Wakeham in the halves.
I get that. But
I might as well play in the halves.
don't say that out loudly. They might come knocking. Mate, I know that you towed up Serbia 96-0.
The Czech Republic, mate. It wasn't
Czech
Serbia.
Republic.
Yeah. The Czech Republic. No, Wakeham in that team, ideal 14.
There's a lot of ideal 14s in that team, isn't there?
Oh. At least they bit the bullet and dropped a couple of the blokes who just do not have a crack.
Yeah. I can't see them winning for a long time.
Hopefully Papali'i will come back to Para.
Well, that's another thing. Like, how long is John Bateman going to put up with this for? How long is Api Coruscant going to put up with this for? Like,
they're three good players.
Contracts are worth nothing. Like, would it shock you if John Bateman said at the end of the year, I'm going back to Wigan?
It wouldn't shock me if he did that in June.
Exactly. So, Papali'i didn't even want to go there to begin with.
That's right.
So
it's the Warriors Papali'i there.
Yes, exactly.
The half not interested, do something good every now and again Papali'i.
Yep. And you know what? Maybe it comes back to coaching again. The fact that Brad Arthur's actually probably the best coach that he's had.
Yeah, and used him properly.
Yeah. Let's move on. The other two games that are remaining yesterday. These are two more coaches that will be filthy today.
They're strange games of footy.
Let's start with the Sharks and the Warriors. 20-0 up. You're the Sharks. I actually found it strange in the moment that they decided to kick for goal when they were 18-0 up. Like, I understand it, of course, but...
Yeah, it's not like they went from 6 to 8.
Exactly.
Or,
so
12 to 14 late
exactly.
in the game.
So, yeah, it was strange that they had all the momentum there, and that sort of was a bit of a handbrake to it. They must be filthy. Their defence, take out the Dragons game last week where they just blew them off the park. Their defence, not only this year, going back to last year, is awful. Awful. It must be the worst in the competition.
I don't even know where to start. I mean, the Warriors are definitely better than what we thought. They're resilient. They never give in. Sean Johnson's playing good footy, but they're not that good. They're not come back from 20 behind the Sharks good.
No, at Cronulla.
Yeah, it shouldn't happen. That's more about the Sharks.
Yeah. Personnel-wise at Cronulla, any solutions there? Gom Molitalu was bad.
Yeah, I just think they're...
I don't think he's droppable.
I think they've just got a bit ahead of themselves. I don't think that they are showing the same attention to detail that they did last year. They were winning games last year based on their defence and resilience and working hard, and it doesn't look like they're doing that. Same as the Cowboys, and I know we'll go there in a minute. But
what do you think of Sifa Talakai? Do you think he's an NRL centre?
I think he's an NRL player, and in that team...
He got picked for Origin last year, and I celebrated. It was either last year or the year before.
Last year
he's not an Origin player.
Yeah, I could see what they were doing. He was the form player in the comp that month leading in, and it didn't shock me. Remembering Turbo was out, Latrell was out.
I get that, but he had one great game against Morgan Harper.
Yes,
towed him to shreds.
Yeah, and then he had two or three really good games after that as well.
But I don't know, and I don't think Mulitalo is droppable over that. But I'll tell you what, a bit of a reality check.
Again, it's who have they got? Jesse Ramien's the same. Look, I don't think Jesse Ramien's an elite centre, but he goes okay, and he's probably better than what they've got there.
With the ball, these guys are almost unstoppable.
They'd be horrendous to tackle.
Yeah, but defense, like it actually reminded me of a Q Cup game yesterday. That game, because the points were just flowing.
Under 20s,
Yep.
the old under 20s comp.
Yeah,
Where it's waves, 15, 20-minute blocks.
can the Warriors make the 8? They've got 4 wins. Like,
No. Oh, sorry. Ask me that question again. Can they make the 8 or will they make the 8? What are you asking me?
will they make the 8?
No.
Okay, so they got the Knights this week.
Which they'll probably win.
Yeah, I'd probably give them an edge. But then they've got...
Although the Knights are going okay.
Then they've got the Cowboys the week after.
Which,
So
again, they could probably win.
they could be 6-1.
Yeah.
So
Then it's a different story.
it's not crazy to see them making the 8.
But we were talking about the Dolphins being, they're three from 3, and everyone was on, all the fins were up, and everyone was excited. But look, let's be fair. We knew that the bubble was going to burst.
Yeah. If this game gets played 10 times, the Sharks win that game probably 8 times, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
So for them to lose that game from 20-0 up, where do you go from here if you're Cronulla? Because your defence is clearly an issue. Take out the Dragons game last week. They just blew them out of the water. It wasn't even competitive. Apart from that, every single game, going back to the finals last year, they've been conceding 26 points a game.
They probably are doing this, but they need to sit back and have a really hard chat around where are we at, what are we doing, what's the difference between now and then, and start identifying a couple of things. And I think the first thing that I notice is that their intensity and effort isn't the same.
The third coach with a headache over the weekend, Todd Payton of the Cowboys. The
Cowboys aren't that good.
They're in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, they're not that good. I mean, they're not.
If you took out last year they were very good. Take out last year, you would say nothing has changed from 2021.
No, not at all.
Are the Bulldogs that good?
No.
No.
But again, they're better.
I certainly... We call this the Vomit Cup.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think the Cowboys make the 8 at all.
No. They're not the way they're going at the moment.
So if we look at the standings at the moment, the Cowboys are 2-3, and then this week they have got...
And unfortunately, the Broncos make the 8 now. They've won too many games.
Of course. And the Broncos have a couple of easy games coming up as well.
Did I sound like I was disappointed then?
The Broncos have the Raiders this week, which they will win.
They should win that by 50.
And then they have the Titans the week after. So they might be able to put on a couple of scores over the next week and playing no defense teams.
And then, look, even if they do lose some games, their for and against will be sitting that nice.
Yes. And the good thing about the Broncos is, apart from the Dolphins game, like when they have played a bad team, they've been able to put a score on.
Yeah.
And so they've been able to get some for and against coverage there. The Cowboys play the Dolphins this week. If the Cowboys were to lose this game...
Oh, that's a scary game for the Cowboys.
This is a line through the Cowboys for me, if they lose this game. Because
this is the type of game that Bennett could probably see some blood in the water. And
yeah. The Dolphins have no halves. And...
Kenny Bromwich might play 5'8".
He might do. It wouldn't be crazy.
He's done it before.
Jeremy Marshall-King to 5'8". You could put Kenny Bromwich at dummy half. Either way, it's not great. It's not great solutions. Let's run through the other games for the week. Storm and Roosters. Cracking game.
Yeah, that is actually. I think the Storm will win, though. No Teddy.
No Teddy's massive. He is a phenomenal player, James Tedesco, and he probably doesn't get the credit he deserves. And it's funny, like every year for Origin, there's always an article saying that either Tom should play fullback or Latrell should play fullback. It's a no-brainer.
Teddy's worst game is an 8 out of 10, and his best game's a 9 out of 10. He's like he's not in the same class, but he's like Cameron Smith got. You know how he got to that point where unless Cameron Smith was a dead set 10.5 out of 10, then no one spoke about how good he was.
Exactly. The West Tigers CEO, I think we'll just touch on it quickly. Did anyone not think this guy was a clown years ago?
I flat out refused to watch the Tales of Tigerland after the first 30 seconds when I saw him. Oh, he might be a good bloke. I don't know. He could be a good fella, but
Well,
I don't know. And I get what he was saying. His rebuttal was fair enough about, he's there, he was at the game, he was just helping unpack buses and take gear out on the field and things like that. But I don't know.
He always seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And the fact that he strikes me as someone who's actually got no idea about on-field stuff. He seems to be very successful off the field.
Yeah.
And the Tigers somehow are very successful off the field. But
the mobile phone in the dressing room was the bad look for me. I didn't care about the being on the field because he could have just been helping. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him standing there and grabbing a footy and throwing it back to someone.
Exactly. The phone in the dressing room was odd, but he strikes me as someone who seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the idea about Tim Sheen's coaching now and Benji taking over, that was at a lunch last year. He was at a lunch with Buzz Rothfield, and Buzz suggested it to him. And they've just sort of run with it and just sort of gone, oh, good idea.
Yeah.
And it's going to come back to bite him on the arse because it's not working.
So, again, if they're none from 10 or none from 12 or even 2 from 12.
Which is, they would take that. So,
does Sheens keep his job? Like, seriously, what do you think? Do you...
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they...
Because I think that they are just... This is now a marriage. They are in this for better or worse. And they have to be. Because otherwise, what do? You sack your coach and then you...
I know it's his first year, so they're not going to sack him, but...
No. But it's concerning.
And they don't look any better.
No.
So
I would
some
argue
teams
they're
aren't.
worse.
Yeah, I would too. Some teams have certainly improved, and they might not have won every game, but you can see that they're better. The Dogs are better.
Yes.
Manly are better. You can see those things. Yes, both teams probably would have loved another win, but they're clearly better than what they were. Whereas the Tigers are not.
No, they've scored 68 points in 5 weeks, so they're averaging just over 13 points, and they've conceded 132. So their average score is 13 to 28.
Yeah. Yuck.
It's not ideal.
Yuck. I had a couple of good mates that are Tigers fans too, and it's easy to empathise with them being a parafanatic.
Seems, let's run through the top 8. Who makes the 8 out of these
Okay,
teams?
so we're going to talk about the 8, who's in what position, whether they stay in the 8 or not.
Yeah. Broncos at number 1. They're going to make the 8.
Yes.
Warriors at number 2.
No.
I don't think so, because in a similar way, they're going through what the Dolphins were at the start of the year. I do think an injury or two derails their team.
Yeah, it will. They lose Sean Johnson and they're in all sorts.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to keep it tally because I don't need Taj Seibold and his mates giving it to me about having 12 in the 8 again. So I'm saying at the moment I've got 1.
Roosters.
Yes.
Manly.
Yes.
Penrith.
Yes.
Melbourne.
Yes.
Dolphins.
No.
Bulldogs.
No.
So how many have you got?
I've got 5.
Okay, so we need to find 3 teams. St George.
No.
Newcastle.
No.
Cronulla.
Yes.
South Sydney.
Yes.
Titans.
No.
Cowboys.
No.
Parramatta.
Yes.
Canberra.
No.
West Tigers.
No.
So that's 8.
That's 8. That's 8, and that's me being biased towards Para.
Who
But surely they've shown enough where they should win some games.
I do think Parramatta will make the 8. Out of those 8 teams that you named, who do you think is the most in danger of missing?
Souths and Para.
Souths and Para. Okay, I would say Souths are a bigger danger. However, Souths defensively have been much better than Parramatta.
Yeah, they have been. But again, Para can score points.
Yes, they can. Souths last week.
Look, Souths are a team that we think of as being this attacking juggernaut. Their attack has been awful.
Souths last week, in one of the coaching blunders of the year, and I don't care who you got out, they put Keon
yeah.
at front row.
Yeah.
What a disaster. Like, my brother and I were watching this game, and it was against... Who was it against?
It was against Manly.
Manly. What a waste Keon is one of the best back rows in the game.
I'm guaranteed that Manly would have been sitting back thinking, oh, thank goodness for this.
No doubt in the world. They just use him as a battering ram.
Because, he's going to make 200 metres through the middle.
But they're not effective.
But on the edge, he's a chance of half a break, creating something for someone, or offloads, or attracting numbers where space opens up outside him.
Yep, and he has to stay in the back row. You can't move him. I don't care who they're missing. You can find a reserve grader to play front row. You can't replace Keon on the edge. And to me, that was a big problem why they couldn't score any points last week. The fact they had no edge presence with Keon.
I agree.
I do think they're in the most danger of missing out because like they're starting to miss some people now, like Alex Johnston's out.
Yeah,
but
true.
What if Latrell does go down? Then this is one thing Latrell hasn't been bad at, and it's purely because of his size. We saw it in the grand final against Penrith. Nathan Cleary bombed them to the moon when Blake Taff had to play fullback, and they just dragged him back into the in-goal.
He's actually saved a few tries, Latrell, this year as well.
That cost them that grand final. Just the fact that they had to concede too many set restarts to Penrith. I think
they were starting right on their line, weren't they?
I think they had 7 dropouts that game. So I would argue just Latrell's presence of being able to get back into the in-goal would have won them the grand final. And so if you take him out and put Blake Taff in, now I'm not saying Blake Taff is terrible.
No, he's good.
But he's not Latrell.
No.
And that's certainly something to watch.
Latrell plays, Souths are a legitimate chance of winning any game they play. Latrell doesn't play, and they're rank outsiders. So, top 8, right? We spoke about that, and we spoke about a couple of teams that we think are in danger. Who are the teams that I said no to, or you agreed no to, that could jump into the 8? Or are you thinking a Warriors could get there? Or a Dogs?
It's funny. I actually think as long as Ben Hunt stays healthy...
Think the Dragons can get there?
I think the Dragons might be the team.
They're always thereabouts.
They're always there. Like, they came 9th last year. Like, they were 12-12. Like, they were one of the favourites for the Spoon.
Yeah, and they made the 8 the year before.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying they will, but it definitely wouldn't shock me.
Well, so it might have been 2 years before that they made the 8, but yeah.
You know, Anthony Griffin might be told he doesn't have a job next year and they go on a run. We spoke about this last week.
I don't know if they'll wait till he's sitting in 4th.
No, and do it 2 weeks after the finals. But yeah, I could see St George potentially going on a bit of a run, but St George have to beat the West Tigers of the world, the Cowboys of the world, the Titans of the world.
Yeah, they can't drop any of that.
They can't drop those games because I just don't think they can beat the elite teams.
Cowboys go on a run, get hot, win some games?
Not now. Not right now.
They just don't look good.
They don't look fit at all. They've scored 85 points this year, the Cowboys. Apart from West Tigers, that's the lowest.
Is it really?
Yep. So they've conceded 85. Now, they have only conceded 99. So they've been...
Defensively, they're okay.
If you average it out, defensively, they're okay.
But that's still 20 points a game.
Yep. Yeah, and it's...
They were down around 14 a game, I think, last year.
Yeah, and that's what made them so good. Their defence, the fact that they played for 80 minutes. And at the moment, you wouldn't... Like, who do they play this week? They play the Dolphins this week. I'm not 100% certain that they beat the Dolphins.
Like I said before, this is a game that Bennett could smell blood in the water. You never know. They're not going to win many more, so he's got to find the ones where he really can get them up for.
They've got the Warriors next week. The Warriors are playing outstandingly. You couldn't back your house on the Cowboys in that one. Then they've got the Knights. Ponga will be back for that game.
Yep.
Now, in what state he's in, I don't know, but I'd rather a team with Ponga in it than rather than out.
You reckon he'll definitely play?
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
Because it's one of those situations as well when a coach knows he's under the pump.
Yeah.
He will do, and rightly or wrongly, I'm not even blaming Adam O'Brien for this. He will do anything he can to try and get Ponga back in the team.
Yeah, true.
And then after that, they take on Cronulla. This is the Cowboys, and then after that, they've got the Roosters. So
it's a tough run.
There's no relief in sight for the Cowboys, and so if the Cowboys are after 10 rounds,
so Cowboys won 2 or 1?
2. So if after 10 rounds they're 3-7, which is highly possible.
And it's funny because we both agree that we think Para will still go on a run and make the 8, and they're actually sitting in a worse position. But it's how you look in those games that you've lost or who you've lost to.
Yeah, and I would actually say last week against the Roosters was Parramatta's worst game of the year.
Yeah.
But if we look at Parramatta's schedule now, it's very juicy. They've got the Tigers, the Bulldogs, then they've got the Broncos, which is the toughest game that they've got. Then after that, they've got Newcastle, the Titans, the Raiders. So
yeah, so they've got to be eyeing off 5 to 6 wins there in that block.
If they beat the Broncos, that's the moment we can circle this and go, this is the moment where we figure out how we're going to make it.
Well, all of a sudden they're a chance of being back in the top 4 if they go on a true run.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a real possibility there that the Eels win at least 5 out of the next 6 and possibly 6 out of the next 6.
Because it's not unusual for teams to be up the top of the table after a couple of rounds that aren't going to be that good, and sometimes teams start ordinary. But after 5 rounds, it normally has started to work itself out, and I don't think we've really worked ourselves out yet.
The Broncos, I would still argue, they're not actually playing that great. Now I know that that's a weird thing to say after they just pumped the Tigers, but if we look back,
it's who they've played.
They struggled against the Dolphins, who have come out and laid an egg against the Dragons, and they really only just got over the top of the Dragons in the last 10 minutes.
They did. They smashed them in that last 10 though. But yes, I know what you're saying.
But these scores, I don't think, are reflective of how the teams are going. Same with Parramatta, like 28-20, Parramatta lost. That wasn't a 28-20.
No, if you missed the game and looked at it and thought, oh, that's a fairly close game, but it wasn't.
No,
Roosters should have beat them by 50.
Yeah, Roosters were all over them. So the Broncos, I would love to see them up against a good team soon. I don't think they get one for a while, actually. I think they've got the Titans this week. Maybe Parramatta will probably be their first test in a few weeks.
To be fair, the Panthers are the only legit team that they've played.
Yeah. And look, they were good enough to get the win that night at Panthers, which was certainly a great achievement for them. But I still think 5 weeks in, Penrith are the benchmark.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's crazy to say, even though they're sitting 5th after 5 weeks, and they're 2-2.
And I can still see the Roosters, Penrith, Storm making up 3 of the top 4.